Hello, my name is Isabelle Charpentier. I'm the head of collections at the Linnean Society of London, and I'm going to take you through a short tour of our collections related to tea. Tea drinking has always been a focal point of sociability at the Linnean Society, and that's been the case for a very long time. Often tea breaks and partaking in tea and cake took place before and after meetings where papers were read and discussed. In the bleakness of post-war rationing, the Society continued providing tea with occasional help, as a letter dated from 1948 from Monique Watt shows. So this is a really lovely typewritten letter, and she says, I am posting to you a registered parcel containing a little tea, a tin of dried milk, and 2 old-fashioned bathing cloths, which will be of more use in the Society's tea room for the aftermath of the entertainment than they are nowadays in a small private pantry. Tea was important to fellows, but tea breaks have always also been important to staff, who often invite readers who are in the library to share tea and cake. And when a new member of staff starts work at the Linnean Society, the retired librarian and honorary archivist Gina Douglas makes a new mug, generally with Linnaeus's signature flower, Linnea borealis, and the initial or name of the staff member. And the mug is to be used during the staff tea breaks. So it's not surprising then that our collections are rich in tea-related items and material. And we hold 2 tea sets in our collections. The first set belonged to the family of our former president and Linnean scholar William Stern. It was designed and made by Mildred Motahede. It features butterflies from the work of Maria Sibylla Merian, whose work on the metamorphosis of the insect of Suriname we hold in the library, and here's a copy here. The second tea set features Linnea borealis and was made in the Hackford's porcelain factory in Sweden. It's a modern 20th replica of the tea set that was designed for Linnaeus and given to him by his student Per Osbeck. Osbeck Linnaeus sent to China in the hope of getting more tea plants, as we'll see when we go down to the collection store. The Inch Tea Library contains books about tea, the plant and its cultivation, and its history. So there's a whole series of books by Robert Fortune, for instance. But what I want to focus on are 2 tea auction catalogues. Tea auctions started at the end of the 17th century with 4 major auctions per year under the control of the British East India Company. Initially, they were called candlelight auctions, and that's because as each lot was announced, a candle marked in inches was lit, and the hammer fell on each lot as the markers were reached. And that's why it was said that tea was sold by the candle. These tea catalogues are extremely rare, and one of them is dated 1797, the other one is dated 1836, which incidentally is the year that the British East India Company lost its monopoly on the trade. And the catalogues list details of the ships that transported the tea, the date of inspection by customs, the warehouse where it was stored, and the number of chests. And each chest of tea was inspected, sampled by designated tea brokers, and given in its own quality mark in the catalogue. We're in the collection store that contains all the manuscripts, books and specimens of Carl Linnaeus that were acquired by James Edward Smith in 1784. So Smith was also a botanist, and he also had a herbarium which is kept in another room. And we have here the tea specimens of Linnaeus and those of Smith. So let's start with Linnaeus first of all. Throughout his career, Linnaeus decried the over-reliance of Sweden on imports of luxury goods, so products like silk, coffee, tobacco, and of course tea. And this has been very well described in Lisbeth Koerner's book, Linnaeus, Nature and Nation, where she really depicts the cameralist aim to Linnaeus's undertaking of natural history and the classification of the natural world. So he expended much effort in either trying to acclimatize plants to Swedish soil or finding substitute. and tea was very much part of this experiment. Linnaeus tried to both acquire tea plants and acclimatize them to grow in the Uppsala Botanical Gardens, and at the same time he attempted to replace tea with homegrown substitutes. The story of Linnaeus's numerous attempts and failure ultimately to acquire tea plants is too complex for this short video. Linnaeus did manage to get a specimen in 1763, and this is possibly where the specimen of Thea bohea here comes from. The specimen of Thea bohea here, and you've got the specific epithet at the bottom of the sheet, bohea, is black tea, whereas the other two are probably green tea, and they were sent to Linnaeus in 1772 by James Gordon, who was an English gardener and correspondent of Linnaeus. And you can see Linnaeus's handwriting, Thea viridis here, and Thea viridis crossed out hyson. And he's also put Gordon's name in very tiny script at the bottom of each leaf. In 1765, Linnaeus's student, Peter Thelius, wrote his dissertation on tea, and here it is, Potus Theae, probably mostly written by Linnaeus himself, and the dissertation is a description of the species, of both species of Thea bohea and viridis, so green and black tea, as well as describing the qualities and virtues of the drink. And then, so this is bound within many other dissertations by Linnaeus's students, and at the end is this lovely engraving of Thea bohea. Linnaeus's attempts to acclimatize tea to Sweden were a failure. And at the same time, Linnaeus tried to convince fellow Swedes of the suitability of other plants that grow in Sweden and could replace tea. So in 1740, he launched a lap tea brewed from the plant that bears his name, Linnea borealis. But it wasn't a great success, and even as his son declared several years later, it was a poor substitute for tea. He wrote, "One shouldn't use too many leaves in the water, for then it is rather repulsive." After Linnaeus's death in 1778, and once Smith acquired the Linnean collections in 1784, Smith was in close contact with several of Linnaeus's students and with the Bank Circle, which is how he acquired a lot of his herbarium specimens. So within the genus Thea, there are 4 sheets and 1 drawing. There are 3 specimens of tea of indeterminate species. There's a specimen of black tea, which came to Smith from China via Sir George Staunton. And then finally, there's a drawing of green tea, which was made by Mr. Glazebrook, and it was made from the tea tree at Oxford, I presume the Oxford Botanical Garden. Within the Smith's herbarium, there's also what we call a Carpological Collection, which consists of various elements of plants that were too bulky to put on a herbarium sheet. And that includes several tea blossoms from probably John Ellis, or it was sent to Mr. Ellis. We do have quite a lot of Ellis's notebooks and correspondence, and as well as some of his herbarium specimen that came to either Linnaeus or Smith. So I'm going to try and attempt to open some of these packets to show you the tea blossoms very delicately. There's 8 of these packets of tea blossoms linked to John Ellis, and of course Ellis was King's agent for the American colony of West Florida, and his aim was to establish a transatlantic tea trade under British control, so hence the importance of tea within the Smith and Ellis collections. And I would say that these 2 collections probably need more research. So that's it in terms of our tour of the collections related to tea. Our specimens are available online. They've been digitized to minimize handling, but all our other collections are freely available. You do not have to be a fellow to come and use the library. Simply contact us. The email is library@linnean.org, and we're looking forward to seeing you soon.